Good morning and welcome to all the participants after a break of 2 days. I hope all of you uh, enjoyed your break from the 21-day program. Today we have the pleasure of having Dr. Mahantesh Shirur with us. Sir is Deputy Director Agriculture Extension, National Institute of Agricultural Extension Management, manage Rajendra Nagar, Hyderabad. And the topic chosen for deliberation today by our esteemed guest is engineering agriculture marketing infrastructure to strengthening agriculture marketing infrastructure to support agriculture in India. Sir, you are audible as well as visible. Also, your presentation is visible, and the session recording has started. I request all the participants to mute their microphone and also want to remind them this session is being recorded and is going to be uploaded on our YouTube channel. So if you are not in an office environment, please turn off your cameras. If you are in your office environments or like that, then you can turn on your cameras. We have no issues in that. Thank you, sir. Please start, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Majid. So first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to present on the strengthening agriculture marketing infrastructure to support agriculture in India. So there are obviously two important reasons that why probably I am speaking on this important topic is one is the context and the content. Both are very relevant, and you have seen how agriculture has changed in India, and this changing dynamics has resulted into the dynamics of agriculture marketing also getting changed. And then with the increasing focus on the export potential after the liberalization of the trade and competition, now the strengthening of agriculture marketing infrastructure has become very essential. So in this context, this particular session, we will see what are the important efforts that have been made by the Government of India to strengthen the agriculture marketing infrastructure to support agriculture in India. Now, this is the session outline. We will quickly run through some of the important things as how Indian agriculture is, and just an overview on the agriculture scenario and agriculture marketing in India, followed by the discussion or maybe a brief presentation on the reforms for agriculture transformation, wherein the FarmAct 2020, which was drawing a lot of attention and focus for the improvement of marketing infrastructure in India, the ENAM facilities, the contract farming, which is in fact part of the FarmAct also, but maybe if required, we will have the discussion on contract farming. Then the integrated scheme for agriculture marketing, which is the core of the presentation, plus the Government of India efforts to strengthen the agriculture marketing infrastructure through different ministries. We will have an overlook, and then we will see the overall summary of the whole presentation at the end. So this is in brief, wherein we will be discussing in three subsections in the whole presentation for the next 45 minutes maybe. Now, this might look repetitive, but I presume this is important to take the discussion forward. And ours is a diverse country with respect to the agroclimate, raw materials base, and the people and their tastes. So this has resulted in the increase in the food production, and our strength of meeting to the rising population has also resulted in the increase in the marketed surplus after we have ensured that our agriculture is shifting from the subsistence to the commercial agriculture. Now we stand first in many of the crops, second in many of the crops like jute, milk, and rice, wheat, fruits, vegetables, oilseed, sugarcane, and many other crops. And in the Indian agriculture situation, our agriculture is free from control, as the farmers and the stakeholders involved in agriculture are free to choose their land, their crop, and many other things. But with respect to agriculture marketing, which is a regulated one, so these are the issues which are basically governed by the Government of India policies. And therefore, the Indian agriculture, if you look at now after the WTO regime, there is also an opening up of opportunities for the global market access. But yeah, this is in continuation to the previous slide what I have been presenting. Like India has its edge in many of the crops, and if you look at the strength of Indian agriculture with just 2.4% of the total land and 11.2% of the total arable land, we are able to feed 7.5% of the total population, plus the quantity of food that we export outside. And we are the leaders by virtue of being largest in terms of areas of production. We are also leading in terms of many crops, oilseeds, and many commercial crops. We are also number 2 in the vegetables, fruits, potato, and onion. We are also number 1 and number 2 in buffaloes, cattle, and goats respectively. And on animal products also, we are leading in milk, and 3rd in eggs, and 6th in meat. So in fisheries also, close to 10,000 metric tons of production. We are one of the largest producers in the fish also. Now coming to the agriculture marketing in India, just an overview. So there are a set of wholesale regulated markets, and we also have the village hearts, which are the retail markets, and which are also supported by the procurement system and the price deficiency payment system, which is a government intervention. Plus we have the agri export, as I mentioned before. So besides this, we have envisaged doubling of farmers' income by 2022, and we all know and quite sure that without the marketing interventions, we are not going to achieve the doubling of farmers' income. So out of these marketing interventions, probably the part of the presentation I will be speaking is on the agriculture infrastructure, agriculture marketing infrastructure that has been the issue of the discussion. Coming to the agriculture marketing scenario in India, these are the salient features or the characteristics probably which helps us to connect more with the subject. One is we are predominantly the small and marginal farmer base economy, where the very small marketable surplus will be there, and individual farmers will have a very limited bargaining power. And this also results into the poor availability of markets and sometimes the monopolistic tendencies of the APMCs. And the inadequate infrastructure in the wholesale markets, which are obviously inaccessible to the small farmers. And then lack of fair price discovery mechanism, which have been the point of discussion for the people who speak in favor of the reforms that we are going to speak. And then there are multiple and exploitative intermediaries at different levels. So this causes low returns to the farmers. And then there are fragmented supply chain, poor cold chain, high post-harvest losses. Now, till 2000, probably we were not very much focusing on this kind of integrated supply chain management, or the emphasis on the cold chain was missing. But post-liberalization, probably we have slowly started taking up into the strengthening of supply chain management along with the cold chain and the efforts to reduce the post-harvest losses. So there are issues in cleaning, grading, and packaging, which are again emphasized only in the recent 1 or 2 decades only. And the limited access to market information and the lack of marketing opportunities or unawareness about the marketing opportunities to the farmers. So this is the overall scenario that if you look at the agriculture marketing scenario in the country. Now, in view of these, there are several reforms. Now, they come either in the form of a policy or in the form of an act or in the form of some suggestions and the guidelines. They are traced to different eras, different regimes in the government sector. So these include the liberalization of the contract farming, which we saw it in the post-2000. The Vajpayee government, a small effort was made, and then the recent enactment, which was pursued through the UPA government. And then there are efforts to encourage the direct purchase and the direct selling from the producers to the processors and industries. This has also been done, and then direct sale by farmers to the end users. Otherwise, it was not very much allowed, and even the interstate goods transfer was not allowed. Even if you go by the status quo, it is still not very clear. And then delinking the provisions of compulsory requirement of shop and space for registration, kind of overcoming with the physical barriers, and then allowing the setting up of private markets, e-trading, and then single levy, then taking fruits and vegetables out of the APMC Act, and then implementation of ENAM in all states and major crops, or connecting the physical markets with the virtual network, and exempting some kind of tree species, and enacting the new laws like model land lease law and many other acts. These acts, these policies, these provisions or guidelines, they are in different phases of being persuasion. Many are in a work in progress. Some have been materialized into some things. Now, coming to the agriculture market reforms, if you look at the whole idea behind whole of the agriculture market reforms is to overcome the problems faced by the small and marginal farmers, or an effort to help the small and marginal farmers, either through aggregation of the farmers or by creating an enabling environment where the farmers can start selling or making use of the state support through the agriculture infrastructure development in the form of good markets, supply chain, cold chain, and many other things. So these include various activities and operations. So this has resulted into the policy drive is there to bring most of the markets under the regulation, and the policy was to have a good control or regulation on the market to help the farmers not to get cheated by the intermediaries. Now, with the time, the percentage of wholesale markets being brought under the regulation has increased certainly, and as of now the discussion of deregulation has started. If you look at the growth of regulated markets and now the demand for coming out of this APMC Act and many other reforms, this looks quite paradox, but this, in my personal opinion, this is only to meet the ambitions and aspirations of the people, those who are willing to be part of the overall increased marketable surplus. Now there are reforms in the government policies to strengthen agriculture marketing in India to help the farming community in the country. So now the question comes, how these reforms are important, or why these reforms, and how they are going to help us. One is the informal trading. If you take into account, most of the village level trading happens outside these APMC markets. Now we are very much sure about that, though we don't officially claim. And then there are efforts required to strengthen the facilities and infrastructure of the existing organized marketing system under the APMC Act. This is also quite evident, barring few important progressive states where the facilities and infrastructure requirement has been taken care. And then to make the APMC markets more efficient and professionally managed. The issues surrounding the elections and the politicization of the APMC markets, these are some of the other issues. And then to facilitate the development of alternative marketing channels with the participation of private sector to create competition in services. So we often quote the example of the private telecom players along with the existence of the BSNL or the state-owned telecom service provider to bring the competition, and then the decrease in the cost of this internet and these internet services and also the increased presence or the increased net penetration and all this increased usage of internet is in fact the credit is given to the public private sector coming into direct competition with the public service provider. So probably this is the logic that we often say, and sometimes they do work, sometimes they do not, but the idea behind whole of the discussion for APMC markets getting a competition in the form of private participation is this. And then to encourage both the public and the private sector investment in the development of post-harvest and the marketing infrastructure. So we talk about public-private partnership and the coexistence of both these sectors to facilitate the growth and development. And this also has been taken in the context of post-harvest and the marketing infrastructure. Now there are a series of efforts from years, but for the sake of keeping it simple, I have just tried to track down the reforms and the government policies to strengthen agriculture marketing in India, especially in the last 2 decades. So there are various committees, the task force, and many other interventions. But if you track down to the recent ones, starting from the ENAM and then the APLM Act, and besides this, from 2016-17, there was also a discussion on the doubling of farmers' income committee headed by Dr. Ashok Dalwai committee. And then the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce, and then the recent 3 important acts that has drawn the nation's attention. In fact, for bad reasons like farmers' protest and arguments and counter arguments. But this is the overall skeleton of the reforms and the government policies to strengthen agriculture marketing in India. Now coming to the reforms continuation, how this has resulted into different processes is the establishment of agriculture markets in the private sector, promotion of direct marketing, scope to contact farming, enabling and establishing effective linkages between farm production and retail chains, private sector investment, ENAM facilities, the National Agriculture Mark, bringing it to the online trading, and then enactment of Warehousing Development Regulation Act, and the introduction of negotiable warehouse receipt system for storage of agriculture produce. It is just to increase the relevance of the food storage system in the country. Now, forget about the bills, but now they have been converted into the acts after the passing in the parliament. So there are dissenting voices, but these are the 3 important acts. Now there is a reason behind why I am discussing these 3 important acts for Agriculture Marketing Infrastructure Fund, or maybe ISEM project, or maybe other MIDH projects, or even the projects or the programs of the Ministry of Food Processing and Industries. The Farmer Produce Trade and Commerce Act, which is basically aimed at creating an ecosystem where farmers will be allowed to sell their produce outside the APMCs. So probably this is the important intervention where the government will try to compete with the rich private players to have a parallel system of market. The APMCs cannot become irrelevant all of a sudden, simply because the private players have started coming into the play and people will rush. So this is the idea where the government will also ensure that with certain projects and schemes, they will also strengthen the APMCs. The government has made it very clear that APMCs will continue to operate along with the private. And then there is a Farmers Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act. This is basically called as, in short, the Contract Farming Act, wherein the solution lies in aggregating the farmers, bringing them into one platform, helping them with cost-effective inputs, providing or facilitating the aggregation of their produce, and then reducing the transaction cost, where the farmers will have the benefit. And then the Essential Commodities Act. In fact, this is also one of the contentious acts where people feel that this will take away the minimum support price and many other things, or it will encourage the hoarding of certain goods and commodities. But this is basically done to bring price stability, promote investment in creating farm infrastructure like cold storage, modernizing supply chain, and to promote exports and many other things. So there will be arguments and counter arguments. Probably I have, for that sake, though it is a old article on the bills on agriculture market, bill on contract farming, bill related to the commodities, I have just put it in the slide because when I share it, probably it will help us to have clear understanding about why there was no for and against discussion for all the three acts. So this is just in continuation how the ENAM has been strengthened over the years. This is also a good development. And then coming to the contract farming in detail, this particular act I'm slightly discussing in further detail just to help us understand as how the agriculture marketing infrastructure will be helped. One is, if you look at the 5 sections that we have listed here, one is the enhancing the productivity at cost efficiency, which I have told already, that there will be cost effective supply of the inputs. There will be good extension services to the small and marginal farmers, which hitherto are not able to get that. And then there is an operation of scale of economy, where again the transaction cost is reduced. Then in the absence of the ability of a small and marginal farmer to reach the regulated markets or maybe a very high-end markets, they will be provided with the support of searching the market and then marketing their produce, at the same time taking part of the risk involved in the price. And in the third aspect, the reduction of post-harvest losses, or if you look at the third, fourth, and the fifth, they are all interlinked. The reduction of post-harvest losses is basically because we promote the investment and the productive job opportunity through the investment, attracting the investment in the forward and backward processing infrastructure. At the same time, we presume that with this investment, the supply chain will be strengthened, and then there will be adequate facility for the cold chain, wherein the post-harvest losses will be reduced, especially in fruits and vegetables. And then these supply chain linkage or the whole chain will have a strong supply in desired quantity and quality for the raw materials that they need. In other words, this is an effort to bring in the agro industries into the forefront. Now, from here on, I'll be discussing in the second section of the presentation, as I mentioned in the beginning, the schemes of the ministries wherein the agriculture marketing infrastructure has been under the has been focused. The very first step that we talk, probably I will not discuss in detail because I have already seen one of the important session exclusively meant for FPOs. But if required, I am certainly happy to take up some discussion on that. But at this point of time, we shall say that the formation and promotion of 10,000 farmer producer organization has been basically done to take care of the small and marginal farmers, to bring them into aggregation, and then to help them with inputs and extension advisories, and also to create a better market facilities for them. And then the aggregation of these farmer producer organization is also seen as an effort to reduce the risk. And how the agriculture and the formation of FPOs will is related to agriculture marketing infrastructure, that we will certainly discuss because that is the most important thing. Then there is integrated scheme for agriculture marketing, and then there is agriculture marketing infrastructure fund, and then the grams and the APMC market, and the promotion of agriculture market through Agri-Tech Infrastructure Fund, the ATIF fund that we often talk. Now, in the Ministry of Agriculture, other than the ISEM, there is also a mission for integrated development of horticulture through the NHB mostly, and then the state government of horticulture also. Then there are parallel efforts, complementary efforts from the Ministry of Food Processing and Industries and the Ministry of Commerce and Industry schemes also. And then there are some schemes like Ministry of Micro, Small and Textiles will also add through their efforts in the agriculture marketing. Now, this is the important scheme, the ISEM scheme. This is, in fact, just for your information, the features have been mostly drawn from the Gramin Bhandaran Yojana, which was there since 2001. And then it has been, also it has been merged with the AMIGS scheme that we often talk of, agriculture marketing infrastructure grading and standardization. And then these schemes in the 12th plan has been recrystaled into the ISEM scheme, wherein the agriculture marketing has been given a lot of focus. So this agriculture under ISEM, the agriculture market infrastructure has been taken care. So idea is basically to develop the marketing infrastructure for effectively managing the marketable surplus, and then promote competitive alternative marketing infrastructure and promote direct marketing to increase market efficiency through the reduction of intermediaries, and then promoting the creation of scientific storage capacity. So if you look at these four important objectives, the storage capacity probably draws our attention in the view of what we have discussed in the earlier slides. Then it also provides infrastructure facilities for grading and standardization, promoting the integrated value chain to provide vertical integration of the farmers with the processors. Now this ISEM, or the agriculture market infrastructure, is basically a reform linked scheme. That's what, when there was opposition for these three acts, the argument from the government side is like, this scheme will help us to set up the markets in the private and the cooperative sectors, or rather private and cooperative sectors will be able to access these funds along with the government schemes. And then there will be promoting of the direct marketing and the contract farming, wherein the small and marginal farmers will be able to get remunerative prices. Now there are different schemes like infrastructure for e-trading, now who can take up these marketing infrastructure activities has been made clear. One is on the storage, the supply chain, all certification process, packaging, value addition, all these activities. In fact, all the post-harvest operations, especially the marketing related aspects, including the processing and the harvesting, have been taken care. How it operates is basically it is an institutional lending where the projects will be financed by commercial banks or the cooperative banks or scheduled commercial banks or the RRBs also. And the subsidy will be basically released through 3 different channels as of now. This is the arrangement that is existing as of now. One is the subsidy will be released through NABARD for the projects financed by the commercial or these RRB banks that I have listed earlier. The second aspect is the subsidy through the NCDC for projects financed by the NCDC or by the cooperative banks. And then ministry or the DAC will directly release the subsidy in case of the state agency projects. Now, how this the subsidy and the grants and the ceiling limits, all these operates, certainly we will see. Under this scheme, the eligible beneficiaries are individuals as well as group of farmers, FPOs. So this is the reason I said FPOs, when the individuals come and form an aggregation of farmers, certainly are able to have a better assertiveness when they start claiming the benefit of these schemes and projects. There will be partnership and proprietary firms who are also eligible, NGOs are eligible, self-help groups are eligible, cooperatives and the cooperative marketing federations are eligible. So if you look at, this is a very inclusive project wherein from individuals to the collective approaches and even from the state to the non-state players, everyone is free to come and make use of these facilities. And coverage of the scheme, in fact, it covers all agriculture and allied sectors. Especially, we are interested in agriculture, horticulture, fisheries, meat, poultry, and then dairy and many other allied sector or the secondary agriculture that we discussed. These are some of the list of indicative projects in agriculture sector. No, in fact, I have picked the most important ones, and we know these are quite frequently talked: cleaning and grading, grain processing, seed processing, sugarcane quality. I have just listed like list of indicative projects. That means there is also a scope to conceive your own project in agriculture, because if you look at them, they all basically post production aspects, starting from cleaning, grading to the quality control labs, which even helps us to pursue the certification as well as export requirement, stringent quality standards that are there for export, especially to the European markets. And then there are all modernizing of the storage, the supply chain, and then trading units, weighing machines, everything, and drying yards, all these things are there. And coming to the horticulture sector, these indicative projects again expand to the cleaning, grading, waxing, and packaging, cold storages, pre-cooling units, reefer vans, ripening chambers, pack houses, and then ropeways. So if you look at the indicative projects of horticulture, even they include some of the products like coconut also. I think I have mentioned some processing of coconut and many other things, though the Coconut Development Board is also able to take up many such schemes. And then the list of indicative projects in the livestock and dairy. These are milk aggregation, milk collection center, the automatic milking machine, chilling plant, pasteurization plant, milk packaging unit, and the reefer vans again. And there is also the back-end support, or maybe any other support that is required can be conceived under the livestock and dairy sector. Under the fisheries, all the fishery sector, and then other secondary units like honey extraction, collection center, bulk storage units, honey processing units, etc., can be funded under the ISEM. Under the forest produce and wool product also, there are indicative projects which can make use of the funds and grants under the ISEM. Now, coming to the scheme guidelines with respect to the market infrastructure, agriculture marketing infrastructure fund is, there is a promoter's contribution, and minimum promoter's contribution is 20% of the project, and the term length should be minimum 50% of the project cost. In other way, these kind of back-ended subsidy. However, for storage infrastructure projects of state government and state government agencies financed under the RIDF, they may be relaxed as per the respective fund guidelines of those states. This we will show it in the next 1 or 2 slides also. And then the promoter's contribution in case of own funded state agency should be 75% or 66% of the project cost, depending on the areas. 75% for the extreme locations, and then 66% for the general states. So this is just one of the important slide for subsidy for how the storage projects, because basically infrastructure on the storage is very essential to give the back-end support for the farmers through the to help them for the better marketing. One is the northeastern states, where the rate of subsidy is 33%, and then maximum ceiling is 4 crore rupees. In other states, for registered FPOs and then for SCSTs, this is the rate of subsidy is same. However, the maximum ceiling is 3 lakh rupees. And then there are also different levels of storage projects which have been which are able to be financed under this scheme. And for other categories, it is 25% with 2.25 crores of the maximum ceiling allowed for storage projects. Now, other than the storage, there are infrastructure projects which can be conceived, and these again have the same amount, rate of subsidy for different regions, but the maximum ceiling has again been fixed at 500 lakhs, that is 5 crore rupees for northeastern states and in other areas. But for other beneficiaries, Other than the FPOs and the Panchayat women and the SC/STs, it is the 4 crore rupees. Now, other than that, there is the important mission for integrated development of horticulture. This basically is made to create an integrated post-harvest infrastructure and the creation of cold chain infrastructure. This is having the important mandate of encouraging investment from private and cooperative sector in the development of marketing infrastructure for horticulture commodities, and to strengthen the existing horticulture markets, including the wholesale and the rural markets, and also to focus on grading, standardization, quality certification of horticulture produce at farm level. In fact, it also hints that there is also enough scope for conceiving the schemes for export and the export-oriented supply chain. There are different assistance under scheme, directly as a credit linked back-end subsidy for setting up of the terminal markets. So this is very important intervention by the MIDH. If you look at earlier schemes, maybe the terminal market and the wholesale market were not emphasized. Rather, the individuals were able to take more subsidy from the NHPs, earlier NHP. Then for setting up of static and mobile vending cart, and for setting up of functional infrastructure for assembling all the drying, cleaning, grading, standardization, SPS measures, they appear quite repetitive to what ISM has envisaged. But please do remember that the MIDH schemes are specially meant for the horticulture sector, and then for setting up of the quality control or analysis of the labs, which is again targeting to facilitate export also. Then under creation of market infrastructure, there are provisions for processing and value addition structures, and then projects and for product promotion and market information and market intelligence services for horticulture crops. Probably this is again an effort to strengthen the ENAM kind of a facility in the horticulture sector also. And the integrated post-harvest management, there are different cost norms and the pattern of assistance for different items. So under MIDH, for the integrated post-harvest management, basically we know the ministry does financing for pack house, integrated pack houses, pre-cooling unit, cold rooms, and the mobile pre-cooling unit. Besides this, these cost norms, I think I'll not read into details. Subsidies 50% or 35 to 50% of the project cost. More or less, it holds good for all. And then the cost norm with different size and different dimensions, the pack houses and the pre-cooling units and the cold rooms can be created. There are also different patterns of assistance for cold storage structures. There are, technically, there are 2-3 different types of cold storage units, wherein the cost norm will be different for large chambered or multi-chambered cold storage facility, or cold storage facility with a controlled atmosphere. So controlled atmosphere having the requirement for energy efficiency and other things. See, additional 10,000 rupees per metric ton for add-on components of the controlled atmosphere has been provided. Again, the pattern of subsidy is from 35 to 50%. Then there are other appendages which can be funded, like the refrigerated transport vehicles, primary processing units, ripening chambers, and the low-cost onion storage structures, wherein the subsidy is more or less, if you look at maximum subsidy limit is 50% of the project cost, and depending on the type of the investment the farmer is planning, the cost norms have been prescribed. And coming to the cost norms for whole of the market infrastructure, these are probably looks quite overwhelming if you look at individual farmers' perspective, but these are basically, the terminal markets and the wholesale markets are basically taken up by the states or FPO kind of a thing, because 150 crore and 100 crore is a huge money, and therefore this is basically done to to help the farmers to have a congenial ecosystem to engage into the horticulture production. And these can also help to facilitate the investment by the private, because there is a a pattern of assistance which is limited to 25 to 40%. Obviously, they have to bring additional fund from their part, and there is also a profit motive, but still to facilitate the public-private partnership, these terminal markets and the wholesale markets have been funded up to 150 to 100 crore rupees. And for rural markets and the direct markets, 25 lakh is the cost norm, and 40 to 55% of the project can be subsidized. Then there are retail markets up to 15 lakh, and up to 30 crore mobile vending cart and platform with cool chamber. These facilities can also be created to give as a back-end support to the farmers or group of farmers. Then we talk about this functional infrastructure. This is in continuation to the these efforts of integrated terminal markets and the wholesale markets, wherein the collection, sorting, grading, packaging units and quality control labs will be established in the alongside the market facilities. Again, if you look at the quality control or the analysis lab, there is 100% of subsidy, because 50%, if it's a public sector venture, and 50% of the cost to the private sector. Again, up to 2 crore rupees for quality control labs, and this is an effort into the promoting the exports. Now, coming to the second important aspect, that is the Ministry of Food Processing Industries. There are basically 5-6 important projects which are parallel to the schemes of the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. If you look at, they are basically an extension of the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers schemes only, welfare schemes only. But the food processing, since it starts with the post-harvest operations, they are exclusively focusing on these mega food parks, cold chain and food processing and the preservation capacity, and agro-processing clusters, creation of backward and forward linkages, food safety and quality assurance infrastructure. Many a times these projects appear to be overlapping with each other or having the similar mandate, but those who are exclusively focusing on the post-harvest operations, they may approach the food processing industries. And I'll briefly discuss maybe mega food park and the cold chain in brief before going to the cost norms. Mega food parks basically aims at establishing the strong food processing industries backed by an efficient supply chain, which also includes the collection center, primary processing centers, central processing, and the cold chain infrastructure. Each mega park food will have around 30 to 40 food processing units with an investment of 250 crore. Here, the financial assistance will be to the extent of 50 to 75% of the project cost. Again, the maximum ceiling is 50 crore. Other than the mega food park scheme, the cold chain scheme is one important scheme of the Ministry of Food Processing Industries, where the entire cold chain and the value addition will be taken care. It helps in creating the pre-cooling facilities, the reefer vans and the mobile cooling units, as well as the value addition centers. Again, the financial assistance, the subsidy is 50 to 75%, but here the maximum ceiling is about 10 crore rupees. So this is a summary of schemes of the APEDA, which is basically helping in export of certain agriculture commodities. They are into the creation of big sheds for intermediate storage and grading or cleaning operations to meet the requirement of the end users, or setting up of certain mechanized handling facilities, maybe at seaports and many other junctures, and also setting up of integrated post-harvest handling system like pack houses. So these all are given up to 40% of the cost equipment subjected to a ceiling limit of 10 lakh, 25 lakh and 75 lakh respectively for all the three subcomponents under the APEDA scheme. Now, if you look at some of these schemes, the whole of the reforms and the interventions in the marketing infrastructures are basically have a very systematic approach, like reforms enabled market infrastructure. And to create the market infrastructure, or to put it in other words, to create the marketing infrastructure, we have taken the route of reforms of agriculture market regulation. And the challenges are there. Now there is opposition, arguments, counter arguments. But if you look at the progress of reforms is also taking place gradually. And then now there is a talk of convergence of efforts of different ministries. Because if you look at the schemes of the MIDH, the schemes of the Ministry of Food Processing Industries, the schemes of the Ministry of Commerce and Trade, most of the times some of these schemes on storage as well as supply chain management, they do have an overlapping objective, or they do have certain things in common. That is why the discussion on convergence of efforts of different ministries comes into picture. And now the convergence of efforts of the federal and the provincial governments is also essential. Because some of the schemes that we have seen is how the state government, the central government has relaxed the rules for the state governments if they want to take up the agriculture infrastructure schemes for promoting better marketing infrastructure in the state. And also the vision is to have a common understanding of pursuing the regulation between the states and the centers, and also the incentivizing investment in infrastructure creation, which is in fact the core of market infrastructure, because these are the most tangible things that are made to appear for the farmers as well as the industrialists to look into as an incentive. And therefore, how the investment can be brought into the infrastructure creation in the market infrastructure. So this is how the whole policy environment has been created to create the agriculture marketing infrastructure in the country. And the idea was just to have a glimpse of different schemes existing in different ministries, how these are operating in complementary to each other, and how these can be made use of by the states, the food producer, farm producer companies, and the individuals. So I think with this I conclude the presentation, and if there are any add-on points or any other questions, you are welcome to interact.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah. Good morning, Dr. Prakash.
Yeah, so thank you very much, sir. I just would like to add some words to our participants. In fact, we have been discussing many things in extension, and whatever we do, end of the day, market is the whole and soul thing what is required for the farmers. And because any questions we do, or at the end, we talk about any production practices or anything, we come to market at the end. So, and this was actually a very good lecture given by him, by our sir. And I'm sure you might be having any of the doubts or any market related newer approaches or newer things you have in your mind, you can share, in fact, or else you can have your doubts cleared through this forum. I request the participants to please.
Prakash, anyway, thank you very much. But just 1 second, I just wanted to tell one important thing. Deliberately, I have not discussed much on the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, which was started in the previous year. In fact, this is also one of the important scheme by the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare to promote the fishermen in the form of, but there are components on agriculture marketing in the fisheries sector also. But for want of concrete information, just like what I have presented, probably that I have deliberately not shared with you. But that is also one of the important scheme because 20,000 crore rupees is what has been envisaged under the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, and there are hordes of activities planned under the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. Yeah, now it's open for discussion.
There is Dr. Kanika Chauhan. She has raised her hand. If you have any questions, please ask. Dr.
Yes,
Kanika
Dr.
Chauhan.
Kanika.
Hello.
Dr. Kanika Chauhan, you raised your hand. You want to ask something? Anyways, anybody else who wants to ask a question? There are a few questions in the chat also.
Yeah,
I'm
able to see some of the observations by
there is one by
Bhargav Barua.
Yeah.
98%. Yes. No. The data up to 2017-18 out of the surveyed markets probably I might not have said. Yes, you are true that northeastern region, many of the wholesale markets are not fully under the control of the ASMB. Now see, the whole discussion becomes redundant if at all will embrace the new acts, because the very purpose of regulation has been taken care by the parallel existence of the private market players. Waxing fruits is allowed. Yes, waxing fruits is certainly allowed, but now there are, this is a very technical thing again. What kind of waxes are allowed and what kind of waxes are not allowed? This is one issue. And then the permissible limits as per the European standards and the West Asian countries, they are all different. But now there are also research efforts to create climate smart waxing that people talk. Maybe technically, I'm not very perfectly positioned to tell about the exact thing, but yes, it is allowed.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Ghosh, sir. Please go ahead.
Sir, actually, we are working in the ICT infrastructure for the development of aquaculture and agriculture extension, and we to set up a support system for technical as well as market information. So, do you have any scheme for us? I'm calling from Kolkata. I'm not audible.
So, sir, unmute.
Can you just help me to put his question again, because I was just logged out of the meeting and then I joined little late. I just could not hear it completely.
Actually, we develop an organization named eAquaagro. We develop ICT infrastructure for development of aquaculture as well as agriculture. The sector. And we are going to set up a support system, including market chain for development of fisheries as well as agriculture, especially in mushroom. So, do you have any scheme? We have a cooperative society. So
that's what I said. I think Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, there are schemes. Whole lot of activities are allowed under Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, but otherwise also under agriculture also you can have the funding based on, for example, Ministry of Food Processing Industry is also open to provide the support through the cold park, mega food parks. In fact, mega food parks is too big an option for a individual or even for sizable cooperatives. But certainly the other links, the processing infrastructure, the cluster approach, all these things that I have discussed under Ministry of Food Processing Industries, point number 3, 4, 5 maybe, are quite helpful. I think they do help for the fishermen also.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else who wants to ask any question or doubt? Please ask. Dr. Prakash, I don't think there are any further questions. I don't see any questions in the chat, and if there are no questions on voice, we can directly proceed to the formal vote of thanks.
Yeah, actually, thank you, sir. Even I just would like to add one more thing to this related to Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. Even because very recently, even our university has also like some two institutes, two centers from our institute have also submitted the proposal to this particular project. Actually, it's a very mega project for because our university being a part of fisheries, undertaking fisheries activities, they have submitted, and actually I think we are also about to get some, I think some 1 or 2 crores, I hope so. But meanwhile, actually I think other fisheries background, fisheries related institutes can also take use of this. And apart from this, not only fisheries, he has also, like our resource person, Dr. Mahatesh Shirur sir, has covered different aspects with regards to agriculture, horticulture, even livestock, as well as some experiences of fisheries. And I really take this opportunity when now we are moving towards the formal vote of thanks business. I really take this opportunity to thank him for accepting our invitation to be the resource person of this particular session. In fact, we had 3 or 4 topics in hand, but I preferred marketing because we wanted to have a little bit more focus on marketing. Also, for the information of our resource person, sir, we have also covered a topic exclusively on FPO, which was delivered by Dr. Nikam of IRI, and many of our participants have also enjoyed that particular session. And even in fact, your session on marketing was also very good. And I'm sure many of our participants have been enlightened through this presentation. And on behalf of all our participants, as well as on my personal behalf, as well as from the organizer side, I would like to thank you once again for sparing your valuable time and sharing your experiences with the participants. And any queries or anything from the participants, we will just share your mail ID. If they are interested, maybe they will be in touch with you.
Sure, certainly.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all the participants. Let us all meet again at 2:30 in the afternoon. Thank you once again.
Thank you everyone for being with us. Let's join back at 2:30 again for the second session. Thank you everyone.